August the 23rd. This morning, President Ferdinand R. Marcos Jr. convened with the National Economic and Development Authority, or NEDA board, to discuss updates on the progress of the government's infrastructure flagship projects, or IFPs, and revised guidelines for the formulation, prioritization, and monitoring of the IFPs under the Marcos administration. To give us more details about this and other matters discussed during the 8th NEDA board meeting, we have with us NEDA Secretary Arsenio M. Balisacan. Good morning, Secretary Balisacan.
Good morning, Daphne. Friends, ladies and gentlemen, good morning. I'm pleased to provide updates on the results of the NEDA board meeting of the Marcos administration, particularly on the progress we have made in implementing our infrastructure flagship projects, or IFPs. First, let me share about the progress of our IFPs. As reported by the NEDA Board Committee on Infrastructure, or INFRACOM, during the meeting, there are now 71 ongoing projects worth 4.11 trillion pesos as of July 2023, up from 68 projects reported in the first quarter. The 3 additional projects that have advanced to the ongoing phase are the Metro Cebu Expressway, excuse me, the Nautical Highway Network Improvement, and the Daang Maharlika Improvement projects. The Department of Public Works and Highways are implementing these connectivity and transportation infrastructure projects, which aim to provide or to improve connectivity across the country. Among the remaining 123 IFPs, 27 have been approved for implementation, 8 are awaiting government approval, 52 are in the project preparation phase, while 36 are under the pre-project preparation phase as of July 2023. Second, the NEDA board confirmed today the revised guidelines for the formulation, prioritization, and monitoring of the government's IFPs. Particularly, projects approved by the Investment Coordination Committee, or ICC, and confirmed by the NEDA board, which are not in the current IFP list, but meet the criteria indicated in the IFP guide. These projects are the Tarlac-Pangasinan-La Union Expressway, or TIPLEX Extension Project, the Philippine Rural Development Project Scale-Up, and the upgrade, expansion, operations in accordance with current legal frameworks. This is a significant contribution to the timely implementation of these projects and fully realizing their economic returns, as this will help the government avoid the possibility of increasing cost and change in cost, scope, and implementation timeline of the flood risk management project for Cagayan de Oro River. The project aims to reduce flooding in high-risk, flood-prone areas, develop Cagayan de Oro River, and strengthen the resilience of the communities along the river's stretch to climate change and other related hazards. Lastly, the board approved the provision of 6 fire trucks for Marawi City by ensuring the efficient implementation of high-impact infrastructure projects. The Marcos administration aims to get the job done. We will enhance connectivity, reduce the cost of doing business, promote the creation of high-quality jobs, and ultimately reduce poverty sustainably to improve the lives of every Filipino. Thank you.
Thank you, Secretary Balisacan. Now, questions from the press corps? Jean Mangalus, Inquirer.net.
Sir, some of the widespread flooding that was recently reported was actually attributed to some of the big-ticket infrastructure projects. Will NEDA reconsider, or has NEDA taken into consideration the reported floodings when approving these projects?
Yes, many of these projects are actually are meant to address the perennial flooding issues. No, if you go in the list of the IFPs, many of these are related to water management and related projects that or infrastructure projects that address flooding and access to reliable water supply.
Katrina Domingo, ABS-CBN.
Sir, we understand that the President and the DENR has ordered a review of the existing Manila Bay projects. May we know the NEDA's input with regard to the review of these projects?
We have not been sought for advice yet or for our perspective, but we'll ultimately have to be involved. As you know, NEDA approves big infrastructure projects, particularly those that will have impact on the economy and society, and in the case of Metro Manila, the whole of Metro Manila. We are not party to the approval of this infrastructure of this reclamation projects, but given the significance and importance in our the socioeconomic landscape of Metro Manila, NEDA should be part of that exercise.
Sam Medinilla, Business Mirror.
Good morning, sir. We would just like to get the reaction of NEDA regarding dun sa projection po ng BSP na government is likely to miss its growth target this year. Tsaka ano rin po kaya yung magiging impact po ng election ban? Kasi di ba magbabarangay election na to. So mayroon pong mga at least a few weeks na hindi po pwede yung government projects. Are we still confident na ma-reach natin yung targets natin for this year?
Yeah, as we discussed during the announcement of the second quarter GDP, we presented there our action plans, our catch-up plans for the various implementing agencies. We have identified the sources of the slowdown, and we think that we can speed up the implementation of projects and programs to benefit the economy for the second half of the year. No? So the things that were not spent in the first half could be spent in the second half, and so it will get recorded as part of the economic activities during the second half. So we feel that, and we do think that by addressing the issues that we have identified, many parties have identified, we could still achieve at least the lower end of the range of 6 to 7. As we mentioned earlier, we need to grow 6.6% in the second half to achieve 6% growth for the full year.
Maricel Halili, TV5.
Hi, Sec. Magandang umaga po. Sir, 7 magkakasunod na linggo na po yung pagtaas ng presyo ng petrolyo at humihingi na po yung mga transport groups ng fare increase, including yung mga taxi operators asking for 70 pesos flag down rate. Ang sinasabi po ng LTFRB, isa dun sa mga ikukonsidera nila sa pagdesisyon yung magiging impact po nito sa ekonomiya. Ano po ba yung posibleng maging epekto kung sa ekonomiya sakaling mapatupad yung dagdag singil sa pasahe?
Of course, any policy actions that we make, especially those affecting a big part of the economy, would have to take into account the broader picture, and particularly the broader objective of assuring that or ensuring that we will keep the momentum of growth going. We will continue the progress that we have made in recent months in slowing down inflation, that we do not also slow down the progress that we are making in the labor market. As you have seen, the labor market has been showing us lower and lower inflation, unemployment and underemployment rates, and we want to move along, continue those, as well as, and perhaps more importantly, improving the quality of employment. So those considerations have to be taken into account in approving requests or appeals for things like higher transport fare. But ultimately, it will also depend on the evaluation of the concerned agencies, the implementing agencies.
Okay. Alexis Romero, Philippine Star.
Secretary, yung nabanggit yung growth targets sa 6 to 7, you're still confident of achieving at least the lower end. But what are the downside risks to that target?
Well, yeah, the downside risk are what is the inflation that especially that the oil prices are picking up again. I mean, the global oil prices. Staples like rice in the global market, prices are also firming, rising. We are positioning ourselves to ensure that while these developments are adverse to our objectives of keeping inflation to further slow down, we need also to ensure that we are in good command of our policy tools. We are, for example, looking at enhancing the availability of stocks so that we can prevent untoward increases or upward pressure on prices in the near term.
So aside from apparently you were referring to underspending when you mentioned the need to fast track yung mga projects, di ba, Sec? Aside from yung increase or fast tracking yung government spending, what other measures will the government undertake para ma-achieve yung at least lower end nung growth target for 2023?
I think the progress in the slowing down of inflation. Inflation has always been a major concern. And if we do that, if we succeed in that will be a big boost to our domestic demand and to our growth. At the same time, we are keeping watch on agencies and putting pressure on each other to ensure that the progress we are making in easing the business conditions, particularly those that impact on the ease of doing business. This we have to address. Remember that our goal, we kept saying that what we need first and foremost is massive investment, to improve the quality of jobs. Because as an economist looking at the problem, it's not so much already anymore the jobs per se that are the problems, but it's the quality of the jobs that are there, So and of course we need nothing less than investment, not just in the public sector, but even more importantly in the private sector, that makes that improvement in the quality of jobs possible.
Okay. Alan Francisco, PTV4.
Hi, ma'am. Hi, Sec. Good morning.
Good morning.
Sir, in the long run, how could this infrastructure flagship program could help in or could help resolve the traffic problem of our country? Particularly, you mentioned the Metro Cebu Expressway, the Daang Maharlika improvement.
Yeah, a big push that we are making is improving connectivity, no? Both physical and in the internet connectivity. With respect to the physical connectivity, what we want to achieve is to connect these lagging areas or regions of the country with those that are doing well, no? Rapidly growing, so that we can create more opportunities, not just in a few places, but in many more places of the country, particularly nationwide. That way, we disperse opportunities, particularly employment opportunities, and that can substantially improve traffic. If we can, there's no reason why all people have to migrate to Manila to just find work here, when neighboring areas or other regions of the country can also have those potentials, no? So, and that has been a well-identified issue for investors in the Philippines, is the lack or poor quality of our infrastructure, particularly connectivity, internet, communication, and all this transport issues. No?
Second. Harley Valbuena, DZME. Microphone, Alex.
Hi, Secretary. Dun po sa ongoing projects natin, may we know na lang po if meron ditong matatapos or makukumpleto na at least within the year, or kung wala po, at least yung pinaka-immediate po, kailan po yung year na nakikita natin may makukumpleto na?
Actually, there are many projects that are expected to be completed within the year, next year, and of course some of these projects were started by the previous administration. No? That this Marcos administration decided to continue because they are good projects, no? So I have those numbers that I let me see. A number of them. I think these are over. I can provide those numbers here. There are, for 2023, we have 12 of those projects, and 4 of those projects, 4 are unscheduled. 1 is ahead of schedule. The rest have some challenges, but we are speeding up addressing those challenges, so that at least we have 12 of those projects. And next year we'll hope. We are expecting about 16 of those projects completed, and 25 and so on. So we get this progression, but we also are making sure that we are starting new ones, so that tuloy-tuloy yung progress natin. So many of the projects that we are actually starting now will be completed by the next administration, and yeah.
Sir, yung 12 projects po to be completed this year, lahat po yun under Duterte admin pa?
Let me see. A good part of them, yes. Let's see if I have those with me. No, I don't have them with me. But you can go to the website of NEDA. There is a dashboard there. You click those ongoing projects, and you click 2023, and you'll see the names and with all the specific, all the details there. It's so user friendly. You will not miss it.
That's great.
It's so visual.
Okay, thank you, Secretary.
Okay, let's go back to Jean Mangaluz, Inquirer.net.
Hi, Secretary. Can I just ask, what are the concrete ways in which the regular citizens of Marawi will feel the ODA from China, and when will it arrive?
Yeah, well, these are fire trucks, no, that were delivered by China, no, for, and this, the fire station was one of those that were damaged, no, during the SIDS, and so I think that should help, but I think that we need to speed up the rehabilitation there. It's been quite a while since the SIDS, no, and I think this is a high, it's a good project.
Sir, one quick follow-up, but like how does NEDA respond to calls to boycott business with China given the situation in the West Philippine Sea?
I think you have to look at this issue in a broader scale. I don't think that in the history of the world, that boycott will work. That has been proven many times in the history of nations. No, so we have to, as the president said, we are an enemy to none. We're a friend to all. So let's keep it that way. We just have to use the diplomatic channels to get our issues addressed. But the economy must, by all costs, be protected. So that's what you don't want. There is, you don't want to cut. All these economies, including China, or even particularly China, they're now part of the global value chain. No? Our economy is part of the global value chain. We are linked to China directly or indirectly. So it's and that should not be the approach that we take in dealing with our neighbor.
Mm-hmm. Okay, Kyle Atienza.
Sir, has the Tariff Commission sought the comment of NEDA on the review of the most favored nation tariff, sir? Sir, has the Tariff Commission sought the comment of NEDA on the review of the most favored nation tariffs? And is NEDA in favor of extending the reduced tariff amid elevated prices?
Well, yes, NEDA is part of in fact, is the vice chair of the Committee on Tariff and Related Matters, no? And the Tariff Commission that initiates and the consultation and review of the matters for presentation to the NEDA board is attached to the NEDA, no? So I'm on top of the situation, and
is the NEDA in favor of extending the MFN tariff, sir, amid elevated price?
They still have to present the study to us, no? But insofar as there is we have a NEDA board decision extending the low tariff for essential commodities, including I think rice. When I say low, I mean it's reducing it from the very high of 50 at that point, I think 35% tariff, and that's supposed to expire in December, I believe, and we'll have to review whether the circumstances today still warrant further extending those tariff rates, and if given the situation now, as we see it, the world prices of rice have been rising. The lag effects of those floods and the typhoons that hit us. We have to be very careful about reversing the gains, no? And so I would think that. When it comes to now lifting those low tariff for those essential commodities, my position is probably not the right time. But again, that depends. It's only August, no, and that has to be at the expiration of the current arrangement is December of this year.
Alexis Romero again, Philippine Star.
Secretary, you mentioned earlier one of the downside risks for the growth is inflation.
Yeah.
And then you also mentioned that inflation is one of the factors that we have to consider when deciding on fare hikes. Last year, a petition for a 1 peso pay hike was seen as stoking inflation. And now we have groups seeking a 5 peso pay hike, or fare hike for minimum fare hike for the jeepneys. So what do you think will be the impact of a 5 peso request for a fare hike sa ating inflation? Will it stoke inflation? What will be its impact on the economy in general?
I don't have the numbers now, but we can look at it. Of course, it depends on how what areas are covered. Is that 5 peso fare are going to be applied nationwide? It's going to be applied only to jeepneys or motorcycles or things like that. We will need more information, but definitely in most instances, in practically actually all instances concerning requests like this, the view of NEDA is sought, and so I haven't seen the report of our staff yet on this, but it should reach me soon.
Katrina Domingo.
Sir, just to follow up on the targets, historically during Burr months, the Philippines usually sees a surge in spending. Do you expect that expected surge to actually contribute to the Philippines hitting its growth target? Or is the NEDA already seeing stricter spending patterns among OFWs because of global headwinds?
Actually, so if you look at the patterns of remittance inflows, when things get bad, those remittances actually increased, become quite robust. And so we call it counter-cyclical. This inflow of remittances, especially when the economy is going into a challenge, that somehow help us recover quickly, and so that's a positive factor that we are seeing. But I think that's what will drive the spending is the expectations, the sentiments of our people regarding inflation and the interest rates. The hikes in the interest rates that we have seen last year, in the second half of last year in particular, are still felt today and will continue to be felt, although in a declining phase to the end of the year, and perhaps even early next year. But I think that the inflation, the decrease in the inflation will, or expected decrease in the inflation will buoy consumer spending. I think except for a few perhaps challenged commodities, particularly those that are affected by floods, where we may still be facing some challenges.
Okay. Alvin Baltasar. Microphone, please.
Secretary, magandang umaga po. Sir, in general, what is our projection as far as Philippine economy is concerned with the advent of the Burr months?
As we said, in the second half, we are sticking to the target of 6.6% to achieve a full year growth of at least 6%. Yeah. So that's, as I said earlier, is achievable.
Do we expect more opportunities like more jobs, yung nabanggit ninyo kanina na remittances, mas lalakas ba yung ekonomiya natin?
Yeah. The reason that we have been very aggressive in pushing for high economic growth is because we want jobs to be created, and not just a few jobs, many more jobs. And if the growth is coming in sectors that create jobs, for example, in the services sector, in this industrial sector, in agriculture, whenever growth is firm in those sectors, you'll get more jobs. Now, as I said, and I keep repeating this because for us, it's also about the quality of jobs. We want the quality of jobs available, the opportunities that are made available of the high quality type, those that can generate more remunerative opportunities, employment opportunities. For example, when factories are opened up, because businesses are putting are betting on us, then the jobs that are created are of better quality than what you find in the informal sector or even in most agricultural activities, for example. So we need more of those kind of investments in industry, in services. We need to, and the other high quality jobs are those in infrastructure. That's why our push for infrastructure is very much employment creating. And as I was looking at our, for example, our housing program, we are aiming for a big push on construction to meet our backlogs in housing. The housing construction has quite extensive downward and upward linkages, and those linkages create a lot of jobs in construction and supplies, construction materials, and so on. So with a big push in infrastructure, you're actually going to see a lot of those job opportunities. But more importantly, because we are addressing the constraint to growth, constraint to investment through this infrastructure development, we should see more investments by the private sector. And that, again, will be the quality jobs that we are looking at.
Okay. Nestor Corrales, Philippine Daily Inquirer.
Good morning, Secretary. Agriculture Undersecretary Leocado Sebastian told lawmakers yesterday that the President's promise of bringing down the price of rice at 20 per kilo remains a far-fetched possibility, citing several external factors. Do you agree with this? Will Filipinos ever see a 20 per kilo rice under this administration?
Our position has always been that we need to increase productivity in agriculture. All right. What drives low prices are increases in productivity. If you can increase substantially the productivity of our farms, for example, our current yield per hectare is about 4 tons per hectare. No, why can't we raise that to 6 to 7 tons per hectare, that's like many other countries, right? And we know what needed to be done to achieve those. You need to invest in irrigation, you need to invest in modern high-yielding varieties, you need to invest in pest controls, and so on, no? Invest in logistics. Unfortunately, those cannot be done overnight, no? Especially, as I was saying earlier, you need investment. You need the private sector to invest in logistics, to invest in post-harvest facilities. We need government to build more irrigation systems, durable, resilient irrigation systems. We need to develop varieties that are resilient to climate change, to floods, those cannot happen overnight. But if we can do this, and if we can do that, we should be able to reduce prices substantially. Prices need not this be high, as you can see it from other countries. You look at Thailand, you look at Indonesia, Vietnam. Those prices are much lower than us because their productivity is high, farm productivity is high. We have neglected agriculture for decades, and that's what we are trying now to reverse. We are putting a lot of resources into agriculture intended to to create those productivity growth.
Secretary, with these interventions and agri-policies being undertaken by the government, do we have a timeline or kailan po kaya maasahan ng Pilipino yung 20 pesos per kilo na rice? Meron ba kayong timeline na tinitingnan?
No, we should have done this, as I said, those investment many years ago. But there's a lot of catching up. Even the infrastructure that we have just discussed earlier, many of those are going to be completed beyond 2028, the time of the president. But we are not looking at just this time period. No, we are looking at the sustainability. We are looking at the medium term. For us, the Marcos administration look at ambition natin 2040 as its peg for its medium term plan. No? Yung ambition natin 2040 is that's the prosperity, the inclusive prosperity, the shared prosperity that we all want by 2040. But that progress has to be sustained over the next 2 more administrations after the Marcos administration. So ganon talaga, ganon yung catch up that we as a country need to do to join the ranks of our neighbors. So I can't say that by next year you should be able to that's asking for the moon. It's that that's not going to happen, because as I said, there's so much catch up thing to do, so much constraints that we are now addressing. But of course, it's whole of society. No, we need to get everyone part of this whole game.
All right. Last question. Wait, Cresilyn Catarong.
Good morning, Secretary.
Good morning
po. Hingi lang po ko namin ng update doon sa pag-imprenta po at distribution po ng national ID cards. Marami pa po sa ating mga kababayan yung hindi pa po, buwan na po, halos taon na po, hindi pa rin natatanggap yung kanilang ID cards. At gaano kalaking tulong po sa ekonomiya ng bansa kung makumpleto na po yung pag-issue ng national ID.
Yeah. No less than the President has been monitoring closely the completion of this project. There has been some delays, but the situations are being, the problems are being addressed. For example, we have now agreed that the provision of the digital ID. Before, the trust was to distribute physical ID, but that was before the pandemic, right? But then the pandemic changed the whole game. Now people are more what's that? Okay, they're more conversant and they like the digital, right? This changed the whole game, no? So, unfortunately, the contract that was issued before the pandemic was for the provision of physical ID and the distribution of the physical ID. That's where a big part of the problem was. Instead of shifting to digital ID, we left that as a second priority rather than a first priority. But now that has changed, where we realize that we should first make those digital IDs so that anyone who has a phone can already use the digital ID, and that is now the primary responsibility of the DICT. There is now an agreement between the Philippine Statistics Authority and the DICT to transfer the provision of digital ID to DICT, while PSA will continue with its physical ID production and distribution. So yun. And I think we're more than halfway in the physical ID, but as I said, we want to speed up the digital ID so that sana before the end of the year, kumpleto na lahat. Everyone will have a a digital ID. It's very important for us that that's completed because it will reduce transaction cost in government as well as in the private sector. It will allow us to save a lot of resources from our ayuda because many of our income transfers targeted for the poor do not end up with the poor, no? Because there are leakages. But with the digital ID, it's the ayuda or transfer income support like the DSW, this food stamp program, for example, will now be delivered through the digital card, no? With the use of the digital ID. So each one of us will have a unique ID, a unique number, and we can no longer tamper with that. So wala na yung nagdodoble yung benefits na nare-receive or ghost beneficiary or mga ganong klaseng issues that
I might add also in the last sectoral meeting, August 15, with the DICT, they did mention that they are standardizing all the information that's coming in, being gathered by the different agencies and from the national ID process to standardize it all because all the agencies are going to be using this digital ID system. And that's also what the president wants. It's centralized and it's available to all agencies. Is that right?
Yeah.
Okay, we're good? Okay. Tuesday New and then Maricel Halili. Mike, please.
Hi, Secretary.
Hi.
Sabi po ng Department of Budget and Management, nabigo yung unang pag-aaral nila para sa panukalang panibagong salary standardization law for next year sana. Kayo po ba ay nakonsulta rin hinggil dito? At kung if so, sir, ano po ang posisyon ng NEDA para sa panibagong panukala na ito? At hindi po ba makatutulong din sa pag-ikot ng ekonomiya kung madadagdagan ang sweldo ng mga kawani ng gobyerno?
That's right. Pinag-aaralan naman yan. I think that the economic managers do coordinate, do talk about as important programs as like this, no? Of course, when we decide on whether to give and at what level we give, I think it's just a question now of how much. But I think that there is a provision in the budget for 2024, for example, for a salary increase, no? But it's just a question of what is affordable from the viewpoint of the broader interest, because we have to look into the other issues. It's not just the workers in government. We do care about, of course, on the welfare of the government, but social protection from mga ganon, no? So you have to weigh carefully the other interests to make sure that what we achieve is a win-win situation.
Very good. Maricel Halili for the last question.
Sir, just a quick clarification, follow-up po kay Nestor's question. You mentioned earlier that there's a lot of catching up that we have to do because we have neglected agriculture sector for decades. Does it mean that it will be difficult for us to achieve 20 pesos per kilo of rice before the end of this administration?
I'm not saying that. It may still be possible. Again, we are not in control of so many things, no? Assuming that we progressed in raising productivity, you should be able to increase the purchasing power. Alam mo niyo, ang pinaka-importante naman sa farmers, sa poor is yung purchasing power nila, right? So if you can prevent the purchasing power of every Filipino from being eroded by inflation, that is a good direction to take, no? So we can increase the purchasing power of the poor if we can get those inflation, of those prices coming down. Not just the inflation rate coming down, but the absolute prices coming down. No? So yun ang ang goal natin. We are looking at the broader picture. Again, it's nice to look at one commodity like rice, but in our framework for prosperity and inclusivity for all, we look at those other considerations, no? That matter most. Kasi if you reduce naman prices of rice, halimbawa to 20, you can actually do that, no? You can actually do that. But if you don't increase productivity while you are doing that, then the farmers will suffer. The rice farmers will suffer. So that's the one thing that you have to understand. Our president make a promise to reduce the prices of rice. That has to be taken in the context that what we will do is to increase productivity. Because if we reduce the prices of rice at that level without commensurate increase in productivity, who will suffer? It's the farmers that you are trying to protect, right? So you should be very careful that you're looking at this game, in a as comprehensive manner as possible.
Okay, well, thank you so much, Secretary Balisacan. Thank you for the updates on the 8th NEDA board meeting and other socio-economic issues. Thank you, Malacañang Press Corps. Have a good afternoon.
Thank you. Thank you again.